Everybody knows that a well-tuned saw can make most saw blades cut smooth as silk. The trick is getting your saw tuned. It's also the only saw gauge that automatically tracks the exact center of your miter channel, regardless of its width or condition. How does it do that? Simpler than you might think. By straddling a pair of smaller precision pins with a larger machine cradle pin, which creates the perfect mechanism for finding the center of your miter slot. Watch how easy it is to use the saw gauge to check how parallel our saw blade is to the miter slot. Even variations as small as 1/1000th of an inch can be easily measured and adjusted for by repositioning the trunnion underneath the table or adjusting the saw top itself. What about the rip fence? The saw gauge tackles that job just as fast. With the blade lowered, bring the rip fence into range of the gauge. You can easily check how parallel the fence is to the miter slot as well. All wood is not the same. Ripping solid wood versus plywood often requires a different fence alignment. For the cleanest tear-out free cuts in plywood, set your fence exactly parallel to the miter channel. For solid wood, you may want to kick out the outfeed end a few thousandths. Now that you can make these measurements in mere seconds, why not? And finally, if after everything your saw still doesn't cut smoothly, you may have a bent arbor. Just like with your blade and fence, the saw gauge can measure that as well. Like all Woodpecker brand tools, the saw gauge is made right here in the USA.
Thicker, thinner, wider, and cleaner. Thousands of woodworkers around the country have embraced Woodpecker's slab flattening mill as the best way to surface live edge slabs. Now we've taken it up a notch with increased thickness range, increased width, highly efficient dust collection, and edge joining capability. The Slab Flattening Mill Pro router carriage adjusts up and down, allowing you to work on thicker and thinner slabs by simply raising or lowering the carriage base, rather than wasting time shimming up the slab or the rails. Check out this range. Work from just a fraction of an inch all the way up to an impressive 3 3/8 of an inch. So how do you know where to set the height? It's simple. If the curtain isn't touching the stock, neither will the router bit. You want the curtain just a little bit compressed. Just support the carriage off the rails, move the pins to the correct slots, lock it down and go. Just like the original, surfacing a slab with the Slab Flattening Mill Pro starts with locating the high point, lowering your bit just below that point, moving back and forth across the slab and repeating until you have a flat surface. And that's not all. With the new lower positions and the included carriage stops, you can mill an edge on your stock that's square to the face and perfectly straight too. Another feature of the new router carriage is integrated dust collection. When we first launched the slab flattening mill, we noticed there were chips everywhere. But now, twin dust collection ports are built right into the carriage, and a tough flexible curtain completely surrounds the cutting area. With the cutting area nearly sealed, dust collection is very efficient and your shop stays cleaner. We also expanded the width capacity to a whopping 48.5 inches when using a 2-inch surfacing bit. You can get the Slab Flattening Mill Pro with a basic length capacity of 58 inches, or you can get the extended version that has a length capacity of over 11 feet. And if you already have the original Slab Flattening Mill, there's an upgrade option to put the new router carriage on your rails.
So I first want to talk about the aluminum extrusions. These things come perfectly straight out of the box. They're also ribbed in order to minimize deflection. They have this cool inverted V that keeps sawdust from settling on top when in use as well. Where all of the metal parts touch, there's a little plastic strip. It's actually a UHMW strip, which is a very slippery plastic. And it's used in order to keep friction reduced and let this thing slide like butter. So an awesome feature of the jig is its modular design. It allows for expansion not only with the length of the slab, but also with the width, because both extrusions are the same design. It uses these rail connectors that use a simple hex key to attach them, and you can make this thing as big as you would ever need it to be. So the jig itself has its own dedicated router mount. It mounts 14 different bases, and it accommodates most 2¼ horsepower and large size routers. What's really cool about this is that it's very, very difficult to tip over or dig into your materials. So possibly my favorite feature about the jig is that because it's made in components that aren't locked together, you can easily take it apart and store it away. You simply unscrew these rails and you can tuck this anywhere in your shop. So once you have everything assembled and you're ready to route, you want to make sure that you properly shim and hold down your piece of work to the tabletop. For this, you can use wooden shims and some hot glue, and you also want to use these little hold down dogs that come with the kit. You simply screw them into the table and they keep everything from moving around, and then you're ready to route. So now that everything's ready to flatten, you want to find the highest point on your slab. I typically do this by hand and just find a high point. Then you want to take your router, bring it into where that high point is, drop it down to the surface, and lock your depth stop to that height. From there, I'll use the adjustments on the router itself in order to get my depth of cut. So for this application, we're going to be using a surfacing bit. Woodpeckers offers multiple surfacing bits. Here we have a braze surfacing bit, which is going to be your more standard looking bit. And then you have the new indexing surfacing bit with the adjustable carbides on it. Both of these are awesome. I've used them both in the past, and they both do a fantastic job. All right, let's make some dust. If you can shine the flashlight behind the straight edge and see light coming through, you know you still have a little bit of work to do. But as you can see here, straight off of the jig, it's perfectly flat and there's no light coming through under it.
What do you do when you've got big, beautiful, wide boards like this for your project, but they've got a little bit of cup or twist to them? What you don't do is just run them through your planer. They'll be smooth, but they'll still be twisted. A planer is just not designed to take care of that. The obvious answer is you run them across your joiner. But what do you do when you have 12 or 14-inch wide boards and a 6 or 8-inch joiner? It's just not going to work. The board mill lets you lock down a cupped, bowed, or twisted piece of stock, and then use your router to cut the face perfectly flat. After you finish the face, you can come back and cut an edge perfectly perpendicular to that face. Even if you have a joiner wide enough to handle this 13-inch piece of stock, it's a lot to try and manage. With the board mill, the wood's staying stationary and the cutter's what's moving. To get started, measure the thickness of your stock. If it's over 1 1/16 inches, simply insert the riser blocks between the carriage and the rails. Just shim your board until it's stable. Lock it in place with the included dogs. Place the carriage on the cross rails. Connect a dust collector, and you're ready to straighten your board. You can work across the board or along it, whichever gives you the best finish. When you have the face flat, change to a straight bit. Lock the lateral travel of the carriage and cut your edge. Now, your board is ready to go to the thickness planer. Or if you don't have a planer, flip it over, dog it back down, and you can actually use this to dimension your stock. Now, nobody's saying that this is faster than a joiner, but really, how many small shops, home shops or small professional shops, have the space and the budget for a 16-inch wide joiner? Not very many. This is a great solution for anybody that needs to handle larger stock in their home shop. The board mill can face stock up to 16 inches wide and 53 inches long. If you need more length, we have 3 longer models that will handle 6'5", 8'5", or 10'5". Get your project started off right.
Woodpecker's latest one-time tool, the hole boring jig, is a versatile solution for effortless project assembly operations. Now you'll be making dog hole patterns with near CNC precision. The hole boring jig starts with a sturdy 3/8 inch thick precision milled phenolic template that features 12 holes with 96mm spacing, which are used in conjunction with 2 brass guide bushings. One will machine 20mm holes and the other 3/4 inch holes when using a 1/2 inch diameter router bit. To start the hole pattern, use the pins to index the template, then clamp the template in place. Next, use your router with the guide bushing to begin boring as many holes as possible. Use either the 20mm or 3/4 inch bushings in the milled holes to keep the template in place once your clamps and the edge pins are removed. With all 12 template holes milled, remove the bushings and move the template to your next group of holes. Then, use the template bushings in existing holes to index the template for making the next set. Discover the efficiency of multifunction bench tops and work surfaces.